and it's such a beautiful day that that could be keeping people on the outside. Right, Diane? You're in Oregon, right? No?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm in Truckee.
You're there too in California.
Yes.
Diane, I have never
I'm in
seen
Utah.
In Oregon.
I know. Hi, Catherine.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
It's great. There's usually about 60 of us in the village, and I never know who's going to show up. So keep it going. I'm glad. I'm so glad. Nice to meet you. Okay.
Great.
So
Okay.
I'm just going to close the screen. We're recording now. So I'm going to get into it. And hello, everyone. Very excited that you are all here. I just adore building this village and seeing you all. So I just want to take a moment to thank my Calamita Wealth Management team, who has, supported my growth of this village roundup experience. And they really showed me that caring about people's financial well-being is just part of caring for their whole lives. And by doing things like this, they really do show how that works. So shout out to my Calamita Wealth Management people. And with that, I am proud to be here with you all, as well as come together with Sheryl Spangler, who we have here in my upper right. I don't know about you guys, and Kristen Hilty right next to her. And we're going to talk about dating differently as a vital and often overlooked practice of defining ourselves and our relationship with what we want. So this is really a different concept, you guys. So last time we rounded up, we enjoyed a conversation with Carolyn Klicka, any of you who were here for that, on forgiveness as spiritual self-care. I know many of you enjoyed this topic. Now today, our topic is equally enthralling because it also invites you to look at yourself and your relationships with a fresh perspective. Because dating differently and the special approach to attracting who and what we want to have in our lives is a very important topic not to miss when dating. So this topic, it occurred to us, this topic of dating differently also continues along the lines of self-care. You guys have been great about working everything into the self-care topic. When in doubt, put it in as self-care. But honestly, without joking, knowing your why in relationship is part of your self-care. And we don't often think about that. So really kind of get your mindset wrapped around that concept. It is really a necessary note that the single most important relationship is with yourself. And I know you've heard this before, but keep that in mind as well. Until we have a positive functioning relationship with ourselves, it is difficult to have that type of relationship with others. You really have to put yourself first. And it can sometimes be counterintuitive, because often we get in a relationship and then we somehow automatically and unconsciously put the other person before ourselves. And there is a balance there, right? Because if you lose your oxygen, if you lose your sense of self, there's going to be a lot of issues that can get in the way. But with that, I would like to introduce to you our guests tonight, Sheryl Spangler and Kristen Hilty. So who are these women?
I ask myself that every day.
Figure it out.
Well, I was so excited when I got to meet. I've known Kristen for a while, but when I got to meet Sheryl, oh my gosh. Well, Sheryl is a certified relationship coach, certified matchmaker, and online dating concierge. Her specialty is helping single women over 40 discover who they are, what they are looking for in a relationship, and why. If you're men out there, just don't worry about that part.
That's fine. I work with men as well.
Good. We got to have both, right?
Yes.
You also, in addition to the why, help with where and how to find that person, which, many of us kind of lose it at the what we want, but how and where to find them is a big part. Sheryl helps clients stand in their power and communicate their needs early in the relationship so they can decide if the relationship can work for them. So that is just thank you for being here. Thank you for doing that work. I thought matchmaking was something else until I met you. So
thank you.
You're really, you stand out. In addition to being the star pupil of Sheryl's, Kristen Hilty, she is phenomenal in her own right. Kristen is a 20-year veteran in the financial service industry. Yes, she started when she was 5. Kristen is passionate about helping to educate and empower people who are divorced or divorcing to make sound, rational decisions around their financial future. She's a firm believer that divorce is a difficult decision, but the divorce process doesn't need to be. Kristen is committed to using her expertise as a certified divorce financial analyst and investment advisor, along with her empathy to help people avoid making devastating financial mistakes while creating a realistic vision for the future. Important stuff. Thank you, Kristen. And what Kristen has said about Sheryl's work is, she simply said, it's unbelievable and it's so important. So
Thank you.
and one more thing before we get into some Q&A, because I'm going to pick these ladies' brains here. Just to share our intention for this time together with you all. Our intention is to spend this time with all of you here today to bring awareness to this work of dating differently. Relationships are not formally taught, but it is never too late to learn, and it's not something you have to do alone. So that's really important. All right, so Sheryl and Kristen, I would like to start off by asking some questions that might be top of mind for our friends here. And again, reminder, write down ones that you have on your own. We'll come back at the end when we're done with this recording. So to start off, I want to ask, what is the biggest myth people believe about dating, Sheryl?
So I don't even have to think about the answer to this because I hear it all the time. There's nobody out there for me. And I'm sure several people here that are in our audience have thought that at some point. And I believe that there's somebody for everybody. And honestly, the clearer that you are about who this person is that you're looking for, and the more dedicated you are to finding that person, then the better chances you have to find that person, your person. So.
I really like that one. And I've said to myself, I'm 10, 12 years divorced now and been in the field a little while. It was very exciting and not sometimes. But, the things that come up in the little voice within that can be really negative self-talk, right? Being aware of that negative self-talk is really a good thing to learn as well, which I know you help people with.
Yes.
I would hear myself saying, all the good ones are taken.
I was just going to throw that one in there too.
Yeah, that's in there. Is this where we talk about the recycling? That's my word.
Yes.
One of the things that I believe, because look at the statistics, there's a lot of what I call recycling that goes on, which is sadly, because of the breakups and the divorce rate, there are lots of people that are in the market that weren't in the market maybe 5 years ago, last year, whatever. And they're working on their stuff. It's true, but people are at different points in their recovery from separation and divorce, I would say. And I think it's important for us to, find the people that are kind of where we are at that point. But yeah, there's all the good ones. Who are all the good ones? I mean, I hear that a lot.
Right.
And until we sit down and define who the good one is for you, can we say that? Is it true? I don't think so.
It could just be that generic good one, that we have built up in our heads and we don't even know what they look like, smell like, or sound like.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. I mean, all of these questions have a million branches. So I'm going to move on to the next one. What is the one area you work on with your clients?
So that is self-discovery and readiness. And I think you all may remember at the beginning when Catherine introduced me, she told you that my niche, which means those are the people that I market to. My niche market are generally women over 40. And honestly, a lot of them are women over 50 and beyond. And when I started doing this work, I was in my 50s and coming out of a separation and subsequent divorce. So I'll tell you that at this stage of life versus when we were in our 20s and 30s, we're different today than we were then. Men and women, we're all different. We're at different stages in our life. Our friend is happily retired. I mean, some of us are looking at retirement. Some of us are just, at a stage where kids are grown and we finally have our life to do what we want and whatever. And so who are we now? And what's important to us, and what's our vision like with a partner now? Have we thought about that? Right. And there's so much in terms of self-discovery and readiness work that I do with clients. And what happens is knowledge is powerful. And as people start to learn about themselves at this stage of life, they get more and more confident, especially often coming out of broken relationships, whatever that is. There is a lack of confidence sometimes. So the great thing about doing this work is you get to know more about yourself and that you are okay. You get more confident.
Yeah. So I would just add, and everybody knows I'm a student of Sheryl. I'm a client. And what I would say, and still am, I'm not all the way through all the work yet. I'm still working.
Doing great work.
Still doing the work. That self-discovery, I can't even say enough about, because there were things that I thought were important to me that really aren't.
Yeah.
And there were things that are really important to me that I completely forgot were really important to me. And so until Sheryl kind of started taking me through a lot of these exercises and really looking at not just my patterns, why those patterns are the patterns, where did they come from? Why do I want what I think I want? It's just been so unbelievably eye-opening for me. And I'm just going to throw this in here real quick because I think it's just so important. So I have a 15-year-old daughter. Nobody taught me this stuff about relationships. Nobody teaches us relationships, just like they don't teach finances anymore,
right,
to our kids, right? Nobody taught us relationships. I get to take all of these things and all these things I'm building on and learning about myself that Sheryl's helped me with, and I get to help my daughter with that someday when she starts being in relationships. And that gives me goosebumps, because it's not just about me. I'm a role model to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Her watching me not knowing really who I am and not being confident in that, and being confident in a relationship that I'm in. So that self-discovery, I mean, I never expected that to be such a big part of the work. It's the most important part of the work.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun. I think it's fun.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to learn who you are again. I mean, when you come out of, I came out of a 22-year marriage. You forget who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're making me remember a quote that I have on my whiteboard, and I should actually just I should ink it on paper because it's been on my whiteboard for a year. But she remembered who she was and the game changed.
Oh, Catherine, great.
But the reason why I do love to spend this time with Sheryl and Kristen, like Sheryl said, it can be really fun. And so many of us get caught up when we're in transition about the fear of the unknown, right? And sometimes it just paralyzes us because there's so many possible stories in our heads of what this is going to be, that you just are like, okay, well, I'm just not going to leave the house then because it's all
well, that's the answer.
I got me Netflix.
Right? Oh my goodness, no más, por favor. But really, that's such the fun, good news, because we keep changing and evolving and growing as these human beings in this great experience. And together as this village, I just love the impact, that when you do get that scared moment of like, what story am I making up in my head? Sheryl, this is what I think is happening, and then you can bounce it off one another and really get to understanding who you are and where you're at right now. So, and if I may quote you, Sheryl, until you know what your patterns are, you risk repeating them, and you will repeat it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're patterns.
Patterns. Just like that. So, love it. Will you please describe your ideal client?
So I'm very, very, very open with that description. And for me, the ideal client is somebody who is willing to invest mostly the time, but also there's an investment financially in doing this work. And before I take on a client, I have a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I want a partner yesterday. Where are you on the scale? If they're not an 8 or above, I won't work with them. I'll refer them elsewhere because they're not, in my view, if you're not at least an 8, you're not committed. Because it's hard, it's fun work, but it's hard work. Right, Kristen? You got to find the time in your week to.
It's fun work because of the result.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the work isn't always fun.
I know.
Right? Because it's not easy to look at yourself. It's not easy to hold yourself accountable. And Sheryl is my accountability partner.
Yes.
And that's essential to have because it's so hard. It's not just hard to look at yourself and be like, oh my God.
And what was that?
It's just like your patterns, like, oh geez, are you kidding me? Like, how did I not see that before? But then so it's not always fun. It's not always fun to do the work, but the result at the end of our time together, every single time, it's fun because I feel like just I've grown so much each time from all the work that it is fun. But that accountability part, having that accountability partner with you, that's essential to me.
Well, that's a very good clarification of that. So thank you for that. And I know that with almost all of my clients, it can doing the work can be painful while you're trying to be honest and think back, especially when we're over 40 or over 50 and we're looking back over our life, right? Because some of these patterns, most of them start in our childhood, and it's what was role model to us and different things like that. And it's not easy to break those. But until you identify them, you have no chance. You'll repeat them.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning too, I don't know about all of y'all, but I've never experienced giving birth to something without pain. But then it's always worth it, right? Whether it's a piece of art or a child or something that you're working through. And again, that's why the power of coaching and good friendships and knowing what's important to you is you need that around you while you're giving birth to that new you.
It's great.
And also, I have to say, there is that interest between committed and interested. And if any of you know Deb Corey, love Deb Corey, great, phenomenal life coach and friend. But she was the first person that introduced me to that concept. Are you interested or committed? And I ask myself that now all the time, even about ice cream. Am I interested in ice cream? Am I committed?
Yeah, lots of people are interested.
Yeah.
And they learn more about what it involves, and then they're not so interested anymore. They're definitely not committed.
When the going gets tough, sometimes you can quit because you're not committed. And again, that accountability. So just wanted to mention that.
I just wanted to make the clarification as well, if I may, Catherine, that not every single is looking for a partner. And I'm very respectful and aware of that. I don't assume that everybody in my singles meetup is looking for a partner. They're looking for social, they're looking for lots of different things. But the point is that this is about making you, if you do this work, and I actually had a client who said, I'm not ready to look for a partner right now, but I've never done this work before and I really want to do it. And then one thing led to another, and she just got married last week. So, things change for people, but until you understand and know clearly who you are and what you're looking for, it's hard to move forward.
One of the things, Sheryl, that just reminded me of is something you told me very early on when we met. And a relationship is a relationship.
Mhm.
Mm.
With
It
any.
doesn't matter if it's a significant other that you're looking for, a life partner,
Mhm.
if you're talking to a 15-year-old kid, if you're communicating with a colleague, those are relationships.
Yes.
And through this work, it's not just about me wanting to find my person. It affects every one of my relationships, really, when you really know yourself that well.
Yes. And what you need in a relationship and what doesn't work for you. Often clients will go through this work and they'll decide there are friends that they've had that they realize really aren't friends.
Mhm.
And things like that. So yeah, it's a relationship with anybody, kids, anybody. Yeah.
So the work is not wasted on anyone.
No.
No, I love that. Because at the end of the day, if you have a better relationship with yourself,
Yes.
with anyone who touches your life, I like that message.
Yeah.
And the work is your program called Conscious Dating.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what you help people go through. It's the
process of self-discovery and readiness.
Mhm.
And then along with attraction. And in my online dating and matchmaking expertise really helps the clients with, okay, now they understand who they are and this is the person they're looking for. Where do they find them?
Yeah.
Because that's important. You could know all day long who you are and who you're looking for, but if you stay in your home or you do the same things you've always done, are you going to find the person waiting for them to, fall in your roof or go to the coffee shop and not put your face in your phone? And you're not going to find them that way. I'm amazed. I have to just say this because it drives me crazy. And I have a few people here from my meetup group, but it's always amazing to me. We're getting together socially and with potential folks that can potentially meet each other. And maybe that's their goal, maybe not. Can you stop that, honey? But there are so many people who just pull out their phone and they're sitting at a table. People. And it feels rude to me. It's like, really? Would I go to an event and sit with people and just meet them and then pull out my phone and have that relationship with my phone instead of the people around me?
Yeah. Our first Village Roundup host, Dr. Juliet Marciano, she pediatrician and parent coach, mindset, all about mindset as well, like you. But she said, look for opportunities to connect.
Mhm.
And she was talking about parents and children, but really, like you're saying, it's everywhere. And maybe we've gotten ourselves into bad habits. A lot of us with COVID. I mean, I waited for someone to knock on my door. They never came. They didn't pop through the screen of Netflix, right? So now that we're all getting warmed up back into this, real life zone, let's remember, let's not be doing this all the time when we could be, finding these opportunities to connect.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I got to ask you this because I've often been guilty of, it's a growing pain or they love me so much and this will have to work, right? So the question here is, how do you know when a problem in a relationship, if you're starting to date or you're testing out the waters, how do you know when a problem in a relationship is solvable or unsolvable?
That's such a great question. Because yes, some people feel like all issues in relationships are solvable.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some that aren't. And that's because everybody has a set of what we call requirements or deal breakers. And that relationship will not work if those are not met. And it is quite a process to get to what is really your list of requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
But think about when when you're hiring for a new employee in your company, let's say, or you're going for a new job. There is a list of requirements that job requires in order for whoever goes into that job to be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those when you have requirements that aren't met in a relationship, that's unsolvable. That creates problems that are unsolvable, because if they're truly requirements, you will not compromise them.
Mm.
If you will, ultimately one day that relationship won't work out. The solvable problems, or I call them the issues that can be differences that can be compromised, are very important as well, and they're called needs. And in the corporate world, I liken those to preferred qualifications. Who's going to fit better with the team, for example. So what needs are important things that are not being met. Your needs are not being met, and there are functional needs and emotional needs. So if somebody is really neat and they're with somebody who is really messy, that's a functional need. However, that's not a requirement potentially. So every time it happens, you're going to have an issue. And the issue is the tip off that, hey, somewhere one of our needs is not being met. So you can certainly talk about it, come to a compromise. Can you please pick your socks up, or whatever it, put your dishes in the dishwasher, or whatever it may be. Some kind of a compromise that both of you can live with. And so that's why we call that a solvable problem.
That does help clarify. And Kristen, I know you can speak to this, but if I can just repeat back. So a requirement, this was the first time I ever heard it when I spoke with you about it.
Yes.
And I can see why doing this work ahead of time is so much easier than when you're in the relationship and you might feel like a nag, or you might feel like somebody's getting on you so much.
Yes.
Right. So all of that can be avoided, and you can be great friends, maybe, if nothing else, if you don't ruin it. But sorry, rabbit holing there. So requirement would be a must-have, right? If it's not there, it's not there. You cannot negotiate a requirement, right?
No.
They're strong.
Really a requirement.
They're black and white.
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
powerful.
And they're powerful. Okay. And then a need is something that can be worked on.
Yes.
If there's some movable wiggle room there. So Kristen, can you speak to that? Because I know you're her star pupil. So tell us, you must have gone through this.
Yeah, so this exercise was really eye-opening to me because I've never actually done it. Like, I sort of had done it. Like, you make your list. Oh, I want him to be tall and handsome. And
Yes, right.
the biggest thing for me that was like this huge light bulb and epiphany moment was when Sheryl explained to me, this isn't about a person.
Mm-mm.
This is about a quality in the relationship that you need to show up. Has nothing to do with a person. Because we're all, like, let's face it, we're all flawed. None of us here are perfect. We all have our thing. Nobody's a perfect person.
Right.
It's about what shows up in the relationship, not the person themselves. So when you can separate that, which was hard for me at first, because that's hard to not think of a specific person. I happen to be dating somebody. I just started dating somebody when I started this process. And it was very hard for me to separate out, like, don't think about him, because this isn't about a person. This is about me and what needs to show up in a relationship. So just that part of it was huge for me. The requirement part, we did that a couple times, because the deal breakers, I went through, I really felt like I had my good list of deal breakers. I think I made like 11 things or something, 10 or 11 things. And then Sheryl went through every single one of those with me and said, why? What is it about that thing?
Yeah.
To make sure.
Show up. Yeah.
Then we went back through again and said, okay, she was like, okay, none of them are ranked, by the way. They're just all equally, if they're deal breakers, they're all equally important. You're not ranking them. If you had to, she was like, if you had to, what would be at the bottom? And I went to the thing that was at the bottom. And she was like, okay, so if every single other thing showed up in that relationship, but this thing didn't, would you end that relationship? And I was like, actually, no. If all those other, she was like, well, then that's not a requirement. That's a need.
That's a need.
So we took that off the list. And then we worked on the needs, like, in a similar way. And then
Make it be a want.
and then went back. And when we went back through it, and she asked me again a week later, let's go back through those requirements again. Let's go back. What would be at the bottom? And I was like, nope, every single thing on here needs to stay, because I know myself enough now. I have to have all of those things show up.
Yes.
Or it won't work. And so it's not like a quick 10-minute process to do. Like it's hard work to look at yourself and what's really important for you to have in a relationship. And we're all different. And if somebody can't bring that to the relationship, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them maybe not your person.
They're not your person. Exactly.
And I think that's important to know too, because I'm a romantic at heart and I'm so free flow, right? And at first when I would hear something like this, I would think, oh, well, it makes you so rigid, right? It takes all the fun out of dating, but that is not true at all. I mean, having these conversations, I didn't even know that was the story going on in my head, that to be romantic, it has to be, make believe.
I'm sorry. I watch Hallmark movies nonstop. I get it.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I know. They're so fun for a good heartbreak. But on that topic of needs, so here is where I want to bring in Sheryl's 3 magic words. All right, guys. Honestly, I'm about to get it tattooed on my it has helped me so much. And like Kristen said, with her daughter, with any relationship you have, this is one of those communicators. And I want to bring it in here on the idea of what we just talked about with needs, because anytime that there is a conflict in a relationship, there are always needs that are not being met, right?
Yes.
So step 1 is being aware of it. And then step 2 is really communicating maybe with your partner. And these 3 magic words come in to do that. Can you please bestow our listeners with these 3 magic words?
Thank you. So anytime you start a conversation with "help me understand," it kind of brings the defenses down. So you're not pointing at someone and saying, "You're not doing so and so." But when you start out with in a very calm tone of voice, because you need to seek to understand. That's the point. Help me understand, or can you help me understand? Please help me understand why you do so and so, or why you say so and so, or whatever it is. And then listen to the answer, and that starts the conversation.
Yeah.
And there's another piece of this I know that Kristen's gonna talk about, right? Don't make requests, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't complain, make requests.
Don't complain, make requests. This is where the negotiation begins.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I've learned so much about myself working with Sheryl. It just makes relationships easier. I catch myself, and I think that, sorry ladies, but I think as women we do this more than men, and we assume a man knows what we're thinking and what we want from them,
Yes.
even if we haven't told them. Right.
Mhm.
So if we're talking about like needs and help me understand, and if you have a need that's not being met, first of all, do they even know that that's a need for you? Because I've had things that were needs that I never actually told the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did, then, we'll see if do those things show up then?
Yeah.
Did they hear me and all those things? And anytime there's any sort of icky, right? I just call it icky. You get the icks, like help me understand why, blah, 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 right? And one of the things that I found that one of my first questions when I started working with Sheryl was, man, dating, like dating it was terrifying to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know all of these things about someone.
Mm-hmm.
Be interrogating them, right?
Mm-mm.
You don't like the interrogation room and you're like, what did you do this? How do you do this? How do you really? But if there are a couple things that you want to know about somebody and that are deal breakers, you can start with, help me understand how you feel about blah, 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 or, you know what I mean? So it's more to me like one of the gigantic things that Sheryl has taught me is the way my prior communication probably came across that I didn't realize.
Mhm.
And I'm
All of
so
us do.
good at it at business. I'm a mediator. I'm a mediator. I know communication, right?
Yeah.
But in my personal life, too close to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that helped me understand
Mhm.
changes everything. Changes everything. Nobody can ever feel like they're being attacked or interrogated if you're like, help me understand, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It-
Or
it's-
another option for that, if you're trying to find out early and you want to do it early, guys, when you go on a first date, see if once you understand what your requirements are, just to see if that person potentially can meet, one or two. To help me understand is a great way. But think about your most important deal breaker, your most important requirement, and then just start talking about it from your perspective. If you have children and you want to make sure that that person likes children, and you're very family oriented, and you talk about that, you talk about your family, or you talk about, oh gee, I have to pick my daughter up at 9 o'clock, so I have to watch the clock. See how that person reacts to that. And if they don't react at all, then you can ask, do you have children? Do you like children? Because you've already diffused it. It's not interrogating. It's really, you're talking about yourself and then waiting for their reaction or asking them to chime in. So it's great conversational with a purpose.
Thank you, Sheryl. I like that because you don't want it to feel, that can turn a date from fun to a flop in a heartbeat. Nobody's having a good time. And I do want to say, I'm keeping my eye here on the time, and I see a couple of you have some questions. I'm gonna, we have a couple more questions in the recording part. Keep a hold of that question, because we're gonna come back to you in the Q&A here in just a little bit. Couple more questions, Sheryl. For the sake of time, just want to ask, how does the law of attraction work in dating? Because we're talking a lot about, finding who you are and what you want. So can you answer that quickly?
Yeah, I can be quick on this. If you believe in the law of attraction, it basically, or you know about it, it basically says you get what you think about. So, what's on the inside shows up on the outside. So, if your thoughts and beliefs are negative, you're going to get some negative there. And to the extent that you can identify them and turn those around over time into more positive beliefs, like, yes, there is someone out there for me. A perfect example. There will be. And you'll find that person. If you say there's nobody out there for me, there probably isn't, and you won't, because you don't believe it. That's the simplest explanation of law of attraction.
That really is. And even if you have to say it as a mantra in your head, like fake it till you make it, right? There's someone out there for me. It's just like, get a grip of that. Say it to yourself in the mirror, whatever works, right? But that is funny how the law of attraction works. And it helps us be better about our own self-talk, right? Which improves everything around us. So when you're truly happy yourself, you tend to attract those like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to our final question here. And I know there's 1,000 more, like we said, but that's why you're out here to work with. We all need Sheryl.
Yes.
But what does it mean to be successfully single?
So to be successful, excuse me, to be successfully single means that you are just fine with being single. I mean, it's just that simple. You're not always looking around the corner for that relationship. You are just happy in your life. You're doing your life. You have friends. You have a good job. You have your retirement. You have whatever it is you want. You are successfully single. That doesn't mean that you want to stay that way. That doesn't mean you're not open to a relationship. But if it doesn't, for whatever reason, if it doesn't happen, you are fine on your own and happy in your own skin, just the way you are.
I think that is such a great concept too, and important to mention, because this is relationship building, right? But also like we said in the beginning, you have to have that really good relationship with yourself first.
Yes.
And it's almost a rite of passage that I wish we would send out badges, Boy Scout badges and Girl Scout badges to the people who've gotten to this point. Because yeah, I mean, at one point I know myself, I had to be my own best boyfriend. I would take my son
Yes.
on these great dates.
I love
the
that.
people that I would meet when I was out there. You don't need someone to take you out. It's always great when you do, but if you feel like you'd rather be single than settle, I think
Yep.
that is a great place.
Yes.
As you're building towards that relationship that you do want, because yeah, you'll never lose investing in yourself and that kind of love.
And once you understand
Yeah.
what you require and need in a relationship, you'll never settle.
Yeah, and I think, we all know emotions are contagious.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point.
They're contagious. And if you are really just a really happy person, that's contagious.
Yes.
And you attract that same type of person. We all, anybody who's a parent on this call, whether you're a mother or a father, you remember when your kids were little and now they fed off of how you felt that day.
Mhm.
Everybody around you.
Even our animals do.
Even
Yeah.
dogs do. When I'm sick, my dogs act like they're sick. Like,
Yeah.
but it's so contagious. And if you are that confident, if you're that confident and you do all of this constant self-work and always just try to, make your life the happiest it can be, whether you're in a relationship or not, that's going to exude from you.
Yes.
And genuinely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I cannot wait to get into this juicy group that we have here after all of this fun interviewing stuff with Sheryl Spangler and Kristen Hilty. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Village, for showing up and being here. I'm going to stop recording so we can get into it. All right. All right.